Welcome to today's webinar. And today's webinar is the first of two sessions where we're going to look at the topic of working with advanced writers, and in particular, looking at the advanced paragraph structures that you can teach those writers and why they might be useful. This is an important topic. It's one of the reasons why, in the first place, I designed a range of paragraph models or types, because the student can't just sustain on one. Why? Because one type of paragraph cannot demonstrate all the types of thinking required as we communicate to people what's in our heads. You need different types of structures to allow for different types of thinking to surface, whether they're positing an argument, whether they're drawing an inference, whether they're synthesizing, whether they're discerning, inferring, extrapolating. These things need different forms. They can't be driven by a singular motor car. So today, what I'd like to do first is briefly look at this topic called critical analysis. And I wonder myself why we're ever teaching it at high school, but we are. But what it means for the paragraph, and then how to teach it in Writer's Toolbox. And we'll jump straight in, and I'll write some for you and talk you through them as I write. So let's get straight in without further ado. Share screen. And what should be coming through now is we'll have a look at this on my iPad, and I'd like to have a brief look at what we mean by this concept of critical analysis. When a student analyzes something, the definition of analysis, we've known this for a long time, for over a century or two, as we're working with students and writing instruction in classrooms. If you're going to analyze something, in essence, you're going to look at its component parts. And after looking at all the component parts in analysis, you're able to say something significant about the relationship between those things and what they might mean. That's the basis of analysis. And analysis always has a product. It has an outcome. There's no I in outcome, but I don't just touch the screen and that's what happens. Always has an outcome. That is, as a result of analyzing, we need to say something. So, what then is this thing called critical analysis? Because it is not the same. It is fundamentally different. If the product of analysis is considering the component parts, and that could be, for example, that could be, you've looked at a book, or you've looked at the origins of the First World War. And as a result of looking at all those different aspects, whether it was the growing militarism or nationalism in Germany, or the Balkan crisis, or the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand, you come to an outcome. You can say something about what you believe is the origins of the First World War after analyzing the different possibilities. Critical analysis is different. Critical analysis says, here is the phenomenon. There. And I don't care in that phenomenon what you think. It is inconsequential. We're going to look at what experts say about that issue. There's a range of experts and how they perceive that. So if this was history, this would be Scholar 1. Let's just call this person Scholar 1. scholar number 1, and this is scholar number 2, and scholar number 3, and scholar number 4, 5, 6, and 7. And as a result of looking at what these people believed the origins of the First World War, we're now able to say something here. In effect, their understanding of this issue has shaped and transformed our interpretation of what we might now say. It's not what we think, it's what experts think. And if this was English, this would be literary criticism. If this was biology, this would be research studies on that biological phenomenon. If this was history, as I said, this is the realm of historiography. And this is what historians have said about this. So the problem then in writing is, how do you do this as a paragraph? Because in writing, if you're going to do critical analysis, you can't use the classic, if you ever did, I wouldn't speak to you again, but you can't use things like that. You can't use things like Hunter's lawyer paragraph, because they are straight line paragraphs that honor the deductive form. That's not what happens in critical analysis. Critical analysis is a means of distillation and discernment, and in inference, you need different forms. And all critical analysis paragraphs then have what we call a hinge point. They pivot. They allow us to take in information from sources, to weigh that information, and as a result, go potentially in new directions. It's this moment here of distilling, of filtration before you go somewhere else. You need a paragraph form that allows this on a page if you're going to write critically and honor the thinking properly. So, how do you do this and teach it to high school students in meaningful ways? Well, we have a solution for you. So let's move off the screen. I'll jump now into Writer's Toolbox, and let's look at it. And as I work you through a couple of paragraphs, I'll also have a talk about when you should do this in school and when not to do it, and give you some suggestions about how you can train students early in these types of techniques. So let's just jump in. And here is my students' dashboard in Writer's Toolbox. And this is Boris, and Boris today is going to have his first crack at a critical analysis paragraph. So we'll go into writing, and we'll use here paragraph creator. This is the thing that you would use to develop your students' abilities in this area. So I'm going to go into paragraph creator. Now, from the range of paragraphs, some here are advanced paragraph structures, some are not. The one I want to suggest to you, the ones that are better quote, curveball, and philosopher. Did you get that? Jot them down. Better quote, curveball, and philosopher. And across today and tomorrow, in particular, I'm going to look at two of those structures, and we'll see how they work, and I'll write some paragraphs for you. The one we're going to start with today is better quote. And there's a reason for that. It's the first one you teach students. When they get to the senior level in high school, that's the first one you teach them. Not curveball, not philosopher, better quote. And when would this be? Well, this is, for most students, the early steps you would take toward this paragraph form would be year 10 in New Zealand, which is year 9 in Australia. You could do it with students who are already highly competent at writing and are showing strong academic thinking writing skills in this area. that would be the earliest I would recommend. So that was year 10 in New Zealand and year 9 in Australia, because obviously the years are different. Other than that, you could safely say that yes, you are rolling out Better Quote to the majority of students by year 11 in New Zealand or year 10 in Australia. That's when they should have an understanding and developing a competency across the mass of them at that year level. So let's have a look. Better Quote. And I'm going to go, I've selected my paragraph. I'm going to go draft. Now, the nice thing about critical analysis paragraphs is they don't need to start with the position. You know how the lawyer paragraph and all deductive paragraph forms do this. They begin with the point. You're telling the person now what the point is right from the outset. You don't do this with the critical analysis paragraph form. The point of the paragraph is not overt at the outset. It's discerned as the paragraph, as the thoughts are weighed, carried through the paragraph, and then it's revealed towards the end. So it's a different form of writing. The thinking processes are made evident by which the thoughts have been arrived at. The thought is not set at the point is not set at the outset. So that means you don't need to worry too much about how you begin it. You can just start it. So, let's just, and the way to teach kids this first is to have a bit of fun, and then I'll do 2 for you today. Firstly, I'll have a bit of fun, and then secondly, I'll write a more serious one using real quotes, because it's Better Quote. I'll actually find a couple of real quotes and use it. First one is, so have a bit of fun first, let them write, let them make up the topic, write whatever they want, because here the burden of content will not weigh them down. So chocolate may indeed be good for the soul. Now, I'm just suggesting something. I'm not saying it is, I'm just suggesting a thought. I'll do it even simpler. Many people believe chocolate is good for the soul. Even simpler. Quote 1. So you want to bring in your first expert. And you leap straight in. George Cadbury said, colon, often the easiest way to handle quotes, by the way. You can get unstuck with commas, students can, but the full colon before the quote begins, when the quote is going to conclude at the end of the sentence, is actually the most reliable form. So encourage them to do that. George Cadbury said, you can never have too much chocolate. End quote. The first sentence you write is you just outwardly quote the person, just give it. The next sentence that follows this, you tell us what they mean by that. Cadbury believed that chocolate was in fact a necessary and vital part of someone's our daily diet and should be consumed with relish. Well, not of course, relish, you know what I mean. Right, then you write this sentence, sentence 3. Here we go. Yet, and follow the instructions. Don't be clever. Don't encourage your students to be clever and write something else. Do what Hunter says. Yet not all see it like this. And this is the hinge point. You can feel it. The paragraph is beginning to turn, and now you quote the second expert. Professor Wonka from Harvard University said, chocolate may be fun, but it will get you in the end. Wonka points out, and this is the bit where the student is just paraphrasing again for you what they know Wonka, the expert, was trying to say at that point. You've probably given your students something to read. They may read a page of this or several paragraphs about this study or this expert's view. And here in their own words, they're elaborating for the reader what the person actually means by that quote. This is critical because by the time you get to examinations and your students are manipulating and working with quotes, unless they tell the examiner in their own words what the quote means, the examiner does not believe that that person knows it. And too often students will leap. You know this, you've seen it. They will leap from, here's the quote, this shows that. Well, prove it. You haven't proved a thing. The child moves too quickly from evidence to proof. And there's no development at the middle whereby the rationale on which that proof rests is stated. And that's the problem. So here we go. It's coming out here, you see. Wonka points out that while chocolate is delicious, the overconsumption of chocolate by more than 18 bars a day can be deadly. You've reached the end of the paragraph, and here you drive home your point by saying why expert two's view is superior to one's and why. Don't revert the paragraph the other way. It doesn't work. This paragraph form works so well because it honors the logic of the thinking brain. The person has been taken through this, and the most recent point, the most recent study or thought or quote elaborated is the one that holds the most water. So this is where you go. The second one is always the best. Wonka is right. While daily chocolate is an essential part of our nutrition. Again, you spell nutrition on the fly. Nutrition. Do you see that? Good, isn't it? Intake. However, we should be moderate. No eating 1 bar of Whittaker's peanut slab will do no harm and in fact keep you lively. So let's just try this thing in the preview, see what happens. Bring it all together and see how it sounds, and if I've fluffed it or we need to make any changes, we'll see. But let's just bring it together. Many people believe chocolate is good for the soul. George Cadbury said you can never have too much chocolate. Cadbury believed that chocolate was in fact a necessary and vital part of our daily diet and should be consumed with relish, yet not all see it like this. Professor Wonka from Harvard University said, chocolate may be fun, but it will get you in the end. Wonka points out that while chocolate is delicious, the overconsumption of chocolate by more than 18 bars a day can be deadly. Wonka's right. Daily chocolate is an essential part of our nutrition intake. However, we should be moderate. Eating 1 bar of Whittaker's peanut slab will do no harm. In fact, keep you lively. Okay, but you see, it hasn't got an ending, so we need to change it. Let's just get some feedback quickly. Fix the ending. Well, yes, let's just go back. We'll cope with you later. Wonka's right. Daily chocolate is a essential part of our nutrition and how we should be moderate. Eating 1 bar of Whittaker's peanut slab will do no harm. But we should stop there and let the feeling linger. Done. So there's my paragraph. Now let me show you how we can do this. And I have written a critical analysis paragraph that I can then send to a file of my choice. As you see, I'll just be completely honest with you because some of you are very quick at this and you said, did you see, Ian, when you brought up FECAT, you got too many sentences per paragraph? Aha, did you know why? Is because I got everything else right, but too many sentences because I'm enrolled as Boris and Boris is a year 7 student. So this knows that as a year 7, I shouldn't be playing with this sort of stuff. But if I was enrolled as a year 11 or 12 or 13 student, it would be going fine, Ian, you're doing great. So it knows my age, just responding to my age. So I can send this off here to, I could create a new file. This is my chocolate piece, my chocolate essay, and send that off. And it's begun, my piece. Go to file, there it is. It's wonderful, this tool like this. I love this feature, can't get enough of it. So let me now do a real one for you using real quotes, because you said, well, that's just chocolate, you banana. A mixed metaphor, no good. Do it with something that's real. And here's what I think you should do. If you're going to teach this paragraph in the classroom, you start with letting the students, and on pairs is the best way to do this. Let me just pull out for you a second. Pairs is the best way to do this. Put them in pairs, let them write this paragraph form on any topic they like. You model it first, like I just did. Then you say, off you go, there's mine. You do a better job in pairs, any topic you like, and you can make up the quotes, just like I did. Because what you're particularly looking for the student to become good at is giving the quote and then articulating in their own words what it is the quote really means. That's the crucial bit. It allows you, as I said, it's the gap between here's the evidence and now what it means. And it's that gap in the middle here where the student has actually given you enough to carry you as a thinker into making the inferences they do at the end. You need that, and the student needs to practice this skill. So let me do one more for you as we've got time. I think we do. We've got time for this, and we'll do one more. Share screen, jump in, we're into this. So what I've done is I've gone off and I've found some quotes, and this is a great thing to do for your students too. You can do this. Go off and find some good quotes on writing or writers or history or biology. But in any of the subjects you teach, there are key things that the experts say. This is the sort of quotes that you can get a lot of mileage from in writing. So here we go. So my piece was, I'll bring it up for you. We'll have a go. Look, we'll just bring up a task and I can add to a task. My task was write a 800-word piece examining the following, colon, do novels is reading a good pursuit? Does reading? Let me do that actually. Does reading make us better people? All right, so let's do a bit of quote paragraph on this. And something like, so just open this thought, or just do something like this. Books, the impact of reading in our lives is open to debate. The first quote, and here we go, and it's a real quote, I've done this. C.S. Lewis once said, literature, and you're going to love this, you'll probably jot this down again, irrigates the deserts that our lives have already become. Isn't that beautiful? And all the English people watching this webinar have already gone into delirium. They love this. You can see the smiles on their faces from here. And they're going, yes, that's so true. Yes, that's true. Books do that. Wonderful literature does that. Lewis believed, so again, I hate pronouns, rip in with the main name again, it strengthens it. Lewis believed that literature, great literature, didn't just describe our lives, it enriched them in ways no other thing could. And that's true, that's what he was trying to say. And so as a thinker, I have already now, as a student, see what's happened? I've already demonstrated to you, the reader, that I understood what that person was on about. I have demonstrated translation. That's that thinking skill. Now, yet, not all see it like this. Now I give quote 2. Here we go. Here's the second person. And this is also true. George Harrison said, the Beatles saved the world from boredom. Harrison pointed out, believed, what did I say there? Believed, pointed out that the music that the Beatles delivered, captured, and enriched, use that up there, enlivened a generation. And now here we will wind this thing off. Harrison was right. Now you see the lovely thing, you can see what's happening, right? I'm not saying I'm right. I'm saying I believe that person's assertions and insight over the top person's. It's not my views, it's the scholars. This is why this is critical analysis. Harrison was right. While the board, I'll try to spell studious, I'd like to try and have a go, but I probably don't really want to risk that live in front of all of you. Sat in libraries. Oh no, while the board, no, while the dull. While the dull sat in libraries reading about life, the 60s. the dull sat in libraries reading about life. A generation of real souls got out and lived it. No book could ever compete with Hey Jude. And there we have it. So let's review our paragraph, see how it all kicks together. So what all I want you to listen for is the and okay, so as I could even hear it here. No book could ever compete with the reality, the true call to life. That is. Now, the impact of reading in our lives is open to debate. C.S. Lewis once said, literature irrigates the deserts, and that should be 3 dots over there, irrigates the deserts that our lives have already become. Lewis believed that great literature didn't just describe our lives, it enriched them in ways no other thing could. Yet not all see it like this. George Harrison once said, the Beatles saved the world from boredom. Harrison pointed out that the music the Beatles delivered captured and enlivened a generation. Harrison was right. While the dull sat in libraries reading about life, a generation of real souls got out and lived it. No book could ever compete with the reality, the true call to life that is Hey Jude. And there you have it. That is the capability, if you like, of the critical analysis paragraph form to bring in and hold in tension 2 views from 2 different experts, sometimes at quite extremes from each other, sometimes possibly even close. And then through this very economical structuring inside the paragraph to distill which is the superior view and indeed say why the writer believes that is the case. And all the time, you're not trying to drive insight as a writer through your own reflections. You're doing it critically. You're using the views and the insights of experts. And that's why they call it critical analysis. So that's enough for today. That's how you can do these things as a beginner writer. Well, as a beginner advanced thinking writer. That's a mouthful. Using Writer's Toolbox. Don't bring it in with children too early. Please don't do that. You'll tie them in knots. It's unnecessary. As I said, your advanced students from year 10 can start to cope with this form in New Zealand, which is year 9 in Australia. For the other students involved, really look at putting this through the mainstream writing programs in your school from year 11 onwards. That's when it will work in New Zealand, year 10 in Australia. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow.